Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivardhari Jasoda Nandana Vrajana Ranjana Jasoda Nandana Vrajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Deving Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, let us first offer our respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Nara Narayan Rishi, the supermost human beings, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta Praeshvabhadreshu Nityang Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. By regular attendance in the classes of the Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering of service unto the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is practically destroyed to nil. And loving devotional service unto the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, becomes established as an irrevocable fact. Idam Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahma Samhitam Uttama Shloka Charitam Shakara Bhagavan Rishi Nishreyasaya Lokasya Danyang Swastyayanam Mahat. This Srimad Bhagavatam is the literary incarnation of God, and it was compiled by the incarnation of God, Srila Vyasadeva. It is meant for the ultimate good of all people, and it is all successful, all blissful, and all perfect. So today we are going to be reading from the first canto, 18th chapter, entitled Maharaj Parikshit Cursed by a Brahmin Boy. Text number 13. Tulyama lavenapi. Tulyama lavenapi. Nasvargam na punarbhavam. Nasvargam na punarbhavam. Bhagavat Sangi Sangasya. Bhagavat Sangi Sangasya. Marchanam kim utashisha. Marchanam kim utashisha. Tulayama lavenapi. Nasvargam na punarbhavam. Bhagavat Sangi Sangasya. Martyanam kim utashisha.
Tulayama lavenapi.
Tulayama lavenapi.
Nasvargam na punarbhavam. Bhagavat Sangi Sangasya.
Bhagavat Sangi Sangasya.
Martyanam kim utashisha.
Martyanam kim utashisha.
Tulayama lavenapi.
Tulayama lavenapi.
Nasvargam na punarbhavam.
Nasvargam na punarbhavam.
Bhagavat Sangi Sangasya.
Bhagavat Sangi Sangasya.
Martyanam kim utashisha.
Tulayama lavenapi.
Tulayama lavenapi.
Nasvargam na punarbhavam.
Nasvargam na punarbhavam.
Bhagavat Sangi Sangasya.
Bhagavat Sangi Sangasya.
Martyanam kim utashisha.
Martyanam kim utashisha. Vaishnavis. Tulayama lavenapi. Nasvargam na punarbhavam. Bhagavat Sangi Sangasya. Marchanam kim utashisha. Tulayama lavenapi. Nasvargam na punarbhavam. Bhagavat Sangi Sangasya. Martyanam kim utashisha. Tulayama lavenapi. Nasvargam na punarbhavam. Bhagavat Sangi Sangasya. Marchanam kim utashisha. Tulayama, to be balanced with. Lavena, by a moment. Api, even. Na, never. Svargam, heavenly planets. Na, nor. Apuna bhavam, liberation from matter. Bhagavat Sangi, devotee of the Lord. Sangasya, of the association. Marchanam, those who are meant for death. Kim, what is there? Uta, to speak of. Ashisha, worldly benediction. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. The value of a moment's association with the devotee of the Lord cannot even be compared to the attainment of heavenly planets or liberation from matter, and what to speak of worldly benedictions in the form of material prosperity, which are for those who are meant for death. Please repeat. The value of a moment's association with the devotee of the Lord cannot even be compared to the attainment of heavenly planets or liberation from matter. And what to speak of worldly benedictions in the form of material prosperity, which are for those who are meant for death. When there are some similar points, it is possible to compare one thing to another. One cannot compare the association of a pure devotee to anything material. Men who are addicted to material happiness aspire to reach the heavenly planets like the moon, Venus, and Indraloka, and those who are advanced in material philosophical speculations aspire after liberation from all material bondage. When one becomes frustrated with all kinds of material advancement, one desires the opposite type of liberation, which is called apunarbhava, or no rebirth. But the pure devotees of the Lord do not aspire after the happiness obtained in the heavenly kingdom, nor do they aspire after liberation from material bondage. In other words, for the pure devotees of the Lord, the material pleasures obtainable in the heavenly planets are like phantasmagoria. And because they are already liberated from all material conceptions of pleasure and distress, they are factually liberated even in the material world. This means that the pure devotees of the Lord are engaged in a transcendental existence, namely in the loving service of the Lord, both in the material world and in the spiritual world. As a government servant is always the same, either in the office or at home or at any place, so a devotee has nothing to do with anything material, for he is exclusively engaged in the transcendental service of the Lord. Since he has nothing to do with anything material, what pleasure can he derive from material benedictions like kingship or other overlordships, which are finished quickly with the end of the body? Devotional service is eternal. It has no end because it is spiritual. Therefore, since the assets of a pure devotee are completely different from material assets, there is no comparison between the two. Sutta Goswami was a pure devotee of the Lord, and therefore his association with the rishis in Naimisharanya is unique. In the material world, association with gross materialists is veritably condemned. The materialist is called Yoshit Sangi, or one who is much attached to material entanglement, women and other paraphernalia. Such attachment is conditioned because it drives away the benedictions of life and prosperity. And just the opposite is Bhagavat Sangi, or one who is always in the association with the Lord's name, form, qualities, etc. Such association is always desirable. It is worshipable, it is praiseworthy, and one may accept it as the highest goal of life. So everyone who is here today has obviously understood the purport because you made the effort to come here to get Vaishnava Sanga. That was the name of the whole presentation this week. And so we've come here to obtain Vaishnava Sanga. And Vaishnava Sanga can take many different forms. And often in the material world, we have different relationships with different people. We have some people who are superior, and in the spiritual nature, this is also the same. We have some personalities who are superior to us, some who are on sort of an equal level, and some who are in need of mercy, in need of taking care of. And so, in order to advance in Krishna consciousness, we need to associate with those who are above us. Yesterday, Shrutakirti Prabhu told the nice story of the one brahmachari who wanted to ask the question, and when he finally got the chance, he said, "How do I advance in Krishna consciousness?" And Prabhupada just said one word: desire. So really, the most advanced devotees are the ones who are desiring Krishna more and more, and who are actually living their lives reflecting that desire. How much are they putting into their lives Krishna and pushing everything else out of their lives? I mean, not that we, push everybody else away when we approach Krishna. But by approaching Krishna, then we really are approaching our goal, and we are approaching also, at the same time, Krishna is non-different from his paraphernalia and his devotees, ultimately. Any advanced soul who is carrying Krishna in his heart is worthy of respect. In fact, Lord Chaitanya says anybody who chants the holy name of the Lord even once is worthy of respect. So we should be respectful of so many people who have just, even, we see somebody walking by the kirtan party and they go, "Oh, Hare Krishna." That person is worthy of respect to some degree, because they have chanted the holy name of the Lord. They have accepted Krishna in a small amount into their lives. And so they are worthy of actually our giving them more association. And so we come here, we get association of the advanced devotees. Advanced devotees are like touchstone. Touchstone turns anything to gold. So Srila Prabhupada was a prime example of that touchstone. He came to the West, and there were so many lumps of coal lying around. All of us, dirty lumps of coal lying around. And Prabhupada was able to touch us and give us some devotional service. Of course, I've heard it said that Prabhupada remarked that making devotees out of Westerners is like trying to wash coal. The more you wash it, it's still black. So, it's like we are slowly advancing in Krishna consciousness and trying to cleanse our hearts. But it is a process that requires more association with personalities such as Srila Prabhupada, or all the personalities in the Bhagavatam, or all the advanced devotees that we have around us. By that association, we can actually become cleansed of the dust that we've had accumulated in our hearts for so many years. The Cheto Darpanam Arjanam Bhava Mahadavagni Nirvapanam. By chanting the holy name of the Lord, one can cleanse the mind of all the dirt that has been accumulated for years. But also by associating with devotees, one can become cleansed. Because I know that when I was traveling with Bhakti Maharaj, of course he wasn't Maharaj at the time, but when we were traveling together doing a lot of traveling Sankirtan, Maharaj was on a much higher platform than myself. And by his association, I was able to advance in my Krishna consciousness. I remember one time Maharaj was, we were sleeping in a motel room, and Maharaj was on the floor on one side of the bed, and I was on the floor on the other side of the bed, because sleeping on a bed was Maya. So we're sleeping on the floor, and all of a sudden, in the middle of the night, Maharaj just sat bolt upright, and he was chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, and he just gradually sort of faded back into sleep and went back to sleep. And I said, "Maharaj, you okay?" And he was like fast asleep again. I was like, "Wow, that's pretty transcendental." He just like woke up out of his. He didn't even wake up. It was just, and he just like sat right up and chanted the holy name, and then just kind of really amazing. But it's by association with personalities that are more advanced than us that we start to get advancement. And then from that advancement, we can share realizations with those who are equal to us. We can discuss Krishna consciousness. And we can discuss Krishna and the philosophy and our service. How can we perform service, and how can we be better in our service? How can we do things better for Krishna, like that? In this way, we can share with each other and also advance in our Krishna consciousness. And then also, there are so many personalities who need our association, even though we may be thinking, well, I'm not very advanced. I can remember when I first joined, and I was Bhakta Chris, and we came from the Ottawa temple down to the Montreal temple. And I can remember sitting at the Sunday feast. I'd only been a devotee for maybe 2 or 3 weeks. And so the Sunday feast happened, and prasadam was served, so I got a plate, and I sat down with Bhakta Rayal, who's now Bhakti Raghava Swami. He and I joined pretty close together, and we were sitting talking, and all of a sudden, actually it was Shivaram who came over and said, there's a new boy over there. Why don't you go talk to him? And we were like, who are you? I'm pretty new. It's like, well, no, but you're living in the temple, he's not, so you know more than him, so go talk to him. And so I went and I, shared some minuscule realizations that I had at the time. And but by sharing one's realizations, they become more concrete within your own heart. And so actually giving Krishna consciousness to others also helps us advance in our own Krishna consciousness. So by that association, by giving that association, we also advance in Krishna consciousness, and then that person advances as well, and hopefully will be able to, take the knowledge that they've received and go and give it to others. So that's sort of the 3 ways in which one can share association with devotees. But it's really important that when we come into the association of devotees that we are open to their association. If we have the false ego attitude that, I know everything, now I'm Bhakta so-and-so, but hey, I'm living in the temple, so I've made it, I don't need to hear anything more, I'm done. I'm in the spiritual world. What more do I need? If we come with that kind of an attitude, we'll never advance in our Krishna consciousness. But if we come with the attitude that I need to learn more and more and more and more about Krishna, because Krishna is unlimited. There's no limit to how much we can learn about Krishna. So we have to have that open, eager attitude, that desire. We need to come with that desire attitude, that I desire to know more about Krishna, and to know more about devotional service, and to know more about how to engage in devotional service so that I advance in my Krishna consciousness. With that kind of attitude, then one can actually move forward in their Krishna consciousness. Without having an open attitude, there's no way that one will advance in their Krishna consciousness. So all of this brings us to the point of, many of us have been engaged in devotional service for many, many years. And oftentimes, devotees have differences of opinion, or they engage in different activities. And they start to think, well, at the end of the Prema Dwani prayers, when we say, all glories to the assembled devotees. And, sometimes in your mind you might be thinking, well, all glories to all the devotees except that one. Because he bothered me in some way, And so, I can't associate with that person. I can't appreciate their Krishna consciousness. And it really behooves each and every one of us to make sure that we keep our Krishna conscious relations open. Because in the same way that I was speaking before about coming with that open consciousness, we need to have relationships in Krishna consciousness that are very open. In the Nectar of Instruction, Dadati pratigranati guyam akyati pritchati. So guyam, one has secret, the param guyam, this is the most secret of all secrets. Guyam means secret. So the most private things in our mind, we should be able to reveal to others in confidence, that they won't go saying it to everybody. And then we should also hear from them And by hearing those and exchanging those things, then we can advance in our Krishna consciousness. But if somebody has hurt us in some way, has offended us in some way, then oftentimes the false ego, because if we have no false ego, then we won't feel offended, right? If we're really Trinada Pisunichena, Torora Pisahishnuna, Manina, Manadena, Kirtaniya Sadahari, then we will be, lower than the blade of grass. How can I be offended if I'm really, truly humble? But when we have some ego, then that ego gets bruised sometimes by somebody else. But what we need to be able to do is we need to be able to open up and approach that person. Oftentimes you hear of family members sometimes who, they offend each other in some way, and then for years, sometimes they will never talk to a son will never talk to his father or his mother or brothers or sisters like that. So they become completely alienated from the family. And so we have this Krishna conscious family, and we know that there are devotees who are completely alienated from our Krishna conscious family, and often it's because they've felt offended by something that we did, and perhaps knowingly or unknowingly, and now they don't want to have anything to do with Krishna consciousness. So in some way we have to be able to open up to them and try to open the lines of communication so that they can come back and get into the... I was just speaking actually with Bhakta Billy, and he was discussing with, I think, Chandramali Maharaj. And, the title of Maharaj's presentations have been, preaching better and preaching more, I think it is something along those lines. I can't remember exactly. But, and Billy was thinking, it's great to be able to preach to all the new people, but there's a whole lot of people that have been in our movement who have kind of drifted away for so many reasons. And we need to be able to also try to get those people back engaged in their Krishna consciousness for their own good. Because they have the greatest gift. They've had an association with Srila Prabhupada. They've had association with the Holy Name, and for some reason they've given it up. So we have to approach those people and get them back. And I was thinking, we were discussing it, and it's such a great idea. The story of the Good Shepherd with Jesus. There's a parable about the Good Shepherd. The Good Shepherd actually leaves his flock. When one sheep strays off and goes away and gets lost, the Good Shepherd will actually leave his flock and go and get that one sheep and bring him back. So, in a sense, this is like the Good Shepherd project. We should go out and try to, recultivate those devotees and try to re-engage them in devotional service. It's not going to be easy. In fact, I don't think it's even going to be as easy as it was approaching people who know nothing about Krishna and getting them to become devotees, because these people have been burned somehow by devotional service. So it's going to be, somewhat difficult to heal the burn and to try to get them engaged again in devotional service. But it is really necessary to open those lines of communication. And, if we ever have difficulties with the devotee, we have to make sure we work those out. Because it was funny, when I was asked to give class, I remember I was going to sleep that night, and suddenly this thought popped into my head, and I got up and wrote it down. And it seemed like it was Krishna speaking to me. And so here's what it was. It was like any sort of disagreement which diminishes our ability to cooperate to serve Srila Prabhupada, hurts ourselves, others, and deprives the Sankirtan movement of much needed resources. I'll say that again. Any sort of disagreement which diminishes our ability to cooperate to serve Srila Prabhupada hurts ourselves, others, and deprives the Sankirtan movement of much needed resources. So we have to be ready to cooperate all the time. Srila Prabhupada was so happy when the devotees were cooperating. When the devotees were not cooperating, then Srila Prabhupada became distressed. And in fact, there is a letter to that regard that Srila Prabhupada wrote to Kirtanananda. It was from Bombay, October 18th, 1973. Shruta Kirti Prabhu, were you there at that time?
The entire year, 73.
Yeah.
Good year.
Yeah. So Prabhupada wrote this letter to Kirtanananda, and the second paragraph begins, "Now this displeasing of God brothers has already begun and gives me too much agitation in my mind. Our Gaudiya Math people fought with one another after the demise of Guru Maharaj, but my disciples have already begun fighting even in my presence. So I am greatly concerned about it. Following in the footprints of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Trinadapi Sunichena, Taroriva Sahishnina, Amanina Manadena, Kirtaniya Sadahari. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly." We must always remember this verse and be as tolerant as the tree as we execute the Krishna consciousness movement. Without this mentality, we cannot be successful. Now here's where it really gets interesting. Material nature means dissension and disagreement, especially in this Kali Yuga. But for this Krishna consciousness movement, its success will depend on agreement, even though there are varieties of engagements. In the material world, there are varieties, but there is no agreement. In the spiritual world, there are varieties, but there is agreement. That is the difference. The materialist, without being able to adjust the varieties and the disagreements, makes everything zero, or jiro, as Prabhupada used to say.
Can you repeat that?
Read that again?
Please, this last line.
Yeah. The materialist, without being able to adjust the varieties and disagreements, makes everything zero. They cannot come into agreement with varieties, but if we keep Krishna in the center, then there will be agreement in varieties. This is called unity in diversity. I am therefore suggesting that all our men meet in Mayapur every year during the birth anniversary of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. With all GBC and senior men present, we should discuss how to make unity in diversity. But if we fight on account of diversity, then it is simply the material platform. I think that's one of the most important lines. But if we fight on account of diversity, then it is simply the material platform. So there should never be any fighting amongst devotees. Although it does happen. And we've probably all seen it happen. We've maybe even, I know I've engaged in it myself. But we need to avoid that fighting, because that is the material platform. Please try to maintain the philosophy of unity and diversity. That will make our movement successful. One section of men have already gone out. Therefore, we must be very careful to maintain unity in diversity and remember the story in Aesop's fables of the father of many children with a bundle of sticks. When the father asked his children to break the bundle of sticks wrapped in a bag, none of them could do it. But when they removed the sticks from the bag and tried one by one, the sticks were easily broken. So this is the strength in unity. If we are bunched up, we can never be broken. But when divided, then we can become broken very easily. I hope this meets you in good health. Your ever well-wisher, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. So, the Srila Prabhupada remarked that the only way to destroy our movement is from within. Nothing can externally affect the Krishna consciousness movement, but we who make up the movement, we are the ones who can either make it or break it. And we can make it by really establishing strong bonds of good relationships. And in this way, amongst all the devotees, and if we have really good, strong relationships with all the devotees, then Krishna consciousness will be very strong. And that's, I believe, what we are establishing here this weekend. We're establishing relationships, we're establishing strong bonds. You know, coming together in kirtan, if we have good kirtan and everybody's chanting and dancing together, you feel together. You know, you feel a bond with the people who are, you know, dancing together with you. And you know, especially, it's actually kind of nice when Maharaj, you know, choreographs the dancing, and we dance together in unison doing different things, and in that way we're sort of establishing that unity all together, and it really carries over, even though one may think, well, that's kirtan and this is now. But no, it carries over. If we dance and chant together, then we will stay strong together. But if we don't chant and dance together, if we neglect the devotees, if we try to be, yesterday Bhakti Purushottama Maharaj was talking about, he mentioned the separatist mentality. If we have that separatist mentality where we try to just, no, I've got my thing to do and I can't be with the devotees. If we have that kind of attitude, then we will never have a strong Krishna consciousness movement. But if we have an attitude of unity, and we may have some differences, but unity in diversity, and if we come together and if we discuss our differences and we try to work them out, that is what is important. But when I find a lot of times when devotees sort of grab on to sometimes a philosophical fact or something, and then they say, that's the way, you know? And then they start painting themselves into a corner, saying, that's the way and that's the only way. And then so many other devotees around them are saying, actually, Prabhu, you know, your understanding is a little off. And nope. You know, this is it. I've drawn the line here and I'm not doing anything else. And they've painted themselves into a corner and they can't get out of it without, you know, really eating some humble pie, which, you know, oftentimes if they have taken that kind of a stance in the beginning, they may not be advanced enough to eat that humble pie. And so they end up sort of distancing themselves from the Krishna consciousness movement. So we have to, even if we think that we have some idea that this is the way to do this or this is the way to do that, we should always check with other devotees. Do you think that's a good idea? Do you think this is a good idea? Should we work together on this, or, you know, should I do this, you know, on my own, and, you know, maybe get others, and, you know, but just discuss it. Be open with devotees. You know, talk with devotees. Always try to establish a strong relationship with devotees. And by that Sangha, by that devotee Sangha, we can advance in Krishna consciousness. And especially, again, if we're, you know, opening our hearts to the senior devotees and asking questions, you know, I've got this problem, I've got that problem. How can I advance in Krishna consciousness? And it was even said at the GBC meeting last year that every GBC member, every guru, everybody should have a mentor. Somebody that they go to discuss their issues in Krishna consciousness. So one should never feel that, oh, now I am guru, or you know, or I'm temple commander, or this or that. I'm the top guy. I don't need to talk to anybody else. I've got it down. No, we never have it down. Krishna's unlimited. We can always learn more, and we can always, become more advanced in our Krishna consciousness. We can always become more engaged in our Krishna consciousness. So it's a constant process of improvement. And I just want to thank everybody for coming here this weekend, endeavoring to make that improvement. I think that all of you have invested some time, money, and effort to get here. And so make the most of it. Make sure that you talk to the advanced devotees and you hear from the advanced devotees, and you really, reap the benefits of having devotee association. And I also want to put out a big thank you to Paramahansa and family for, just putting on a wonderful festival year after year. It really is an amazing festival. It's actually kind of unfortunately, it's a well-kept secret. There should be a lot more devotees here. In fact, it would be really nice if, next year we fill this room, and then, the year after it starts to overflow, and then we have, a few years ago we used to have it down in the big hall, and but then there was only a few devotees, and it sort of seemed like we were in this huge space, and there was only a few devotees. But perhaps in the future, if this becomes more well-known, and if personalities like Shruta Kirti Prabhu keep coming back and bringing Prabhupada in his heart and bringing Prabhupada to us, in his discussions, if that keeps happening, then more and more people will start to know that this is a wonderful festival to come to, and that, perhaps we'll be able to fill that hall. So I think I'll stop there. Actually, we have some times for questions or comments. First hand I saw was Gore, and then Shruta Kirti, and then there and there. Okay, Gore.
Excellent class, Krishnadas Prabhu. Thank you so much. Excellent topic. Such a relevant topic that you could spend the whole week having a seminar on what does it mean to cooperate. I saw an interesting bumper sticker on the back of a car in America. It said, "I'm a very cooperative person. As long as you see things my way, we'll get along just fine." I just have a few points I wanted to make. So you mentioned Srila Prabhupada is distressed by a lack of cooperation. And one thing I've been meditating on is how a good leader is someone who listens. How Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, for example, listened to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya give his spiel for a whole week, and then finally he responded. Whether we're a husband, whether we're a temple president, whether we're a JBC, a sannyasi, whatever, I think the strength of that person in that position of leadership is to be willing to listen, show that empathy, to really understand where that devotee or those devotees are coming from. This is not to knock the JBC, because I know Prabhupada wanted one, but I put out a question a few times. When was the last time that your GBC, as a godbrother or a godsister of a GBC, consulted with you about anything? Didn't get any responses. So I'm just putting that out there to say it's a consideration. Like for instance, Naranjan Swami told me, when he comes from a GBC meeting and he goes back to the Ukraine, he gets his disciples on board. Well, this was what was discussed. These were the points. I went to a GBC not too long ago. So, Maharaj, what went on at the GBC meeting? Oh, well, these things aren't meant for, not everything's meant for public disclosure. And that was the end of it. I was asking because I just wanted to feel more connected to the ISKCON that I gave my life to. And I was just sort of felt, I was just kind of like put to the side. And I thought, okay, not all GBCs are like that. I know if I were to go to Naranjan Swami, for example, I could hear much more. But I just wanted to say that Srila Prabhupada said in one place that the best leader is a spiritual dictator, spiritual dictatorship. He said, provided that the dictator is a pure devotee of the Lord. And I liked your analogy very much of being good shepherds, and we should all be those good shepherds. I've spent the last 7 years, found almost 900 Prabhupada disciples scattered all over the world, many of them in little towns and villages. I just found one god sister, Vilasi Devi Dasi, in Rochester with diabetes, walking with a cane, going blind. I connected her. I'm not saying this, I'm not bragging, I'm just saying it's a little service I did recently.
Yeah, no, it's
She
great.
didn't even know there were, 20 devotees in ISKCON in her area. And she was so grateful to find it. And I'm thinking, how Prabhupada, everywhere he would go, where is so-and-so? Where is so-and-so? Prabhupada loves us. He's concerned about us. And this is a very valuable service to do. Like our Montreal temple has dozens of Prabhupada disciples. Why aren't they here today? I'm just saying that as an example. So the last point was that, okay, we're going to be good shepherds. So what are we bringing people back to? You said that if we fight on account of diversity, it is the material platform. So we have to make sure that what we're bringing people back to as good shepherds is not something which is intolerant of diversity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lord. Shritskirti.
Hare Krishna. Yes, I have to agree with Gaur. It was a very wonderful class, and like you said, the topics are relevant to us so much. There were a few points of mine. The first one, you were discussing, I was in England from 2003 to 2010, and around 2006, Mekhala, my wife and I, we got involved helping with the temple, and that was one of the topics, was bringing back the disconnected godbrothers, which at the manor, probably over 100, within 10 miles or so. So we got involved, and especially for Vyas Puja, Mekhala organized a feast and everything, and we had so many people coming, and it was, they recognized it as a real ISKCON feast, like a Prabhupada feast, what we used to make in the old days. And I remember sitting down to one of my godbrothers who I hadn't seen this many, many times, and he did come. And we talked about that point of bringing the devotees back to the back. And he looked at me, he said, I didn't go anywhere. He said, the temple has. I said, I don't recognize it, when Prabhupada was there. So one important thing when we approach devotees is not to assume that they're fallen because they're outside. Many of them, very, very wonderful devotees, and I'm sure when you travel, you see them all over the place, but they don't feel at home at their home. So that's, we have to take a position, maybe I should tell it this evening. There's a story, ask me about it, please, because I have no memory, in Hawaii, where Sundar came back. So anyway, we always have to assume we did something wrong. Even if they did everything wrong. Prabhupada's position was always, what did I do that made you leave? Not what did you do that made you leave. It's changing. We have to change our mentality. Because if we are pure, we always see ourselves as more fallen than everyone. So what's the question? Saving a devotee. We see him as a devotee, right? So that was the first thing. The second was cooperation, which the word itself, it's co. Cooperation usually means surrender to the authority. So one way, it's you cooperate with me, this is what we're doing here, and you cooperate. But that's not cooperation. It's to hear the other side, especially, we have service, we have our management position, but we see these are all our peers. And like you say, to feel consulted about something from a godbrother at GBC's sannyasi makes you feel very happy. I told you so many stories. And Prabhupada would say, what is your opinion? Imagine. My godbrother didn't ask me. They don't ask me. Prabhupada was asking me my opinion of things. This is nobody. And that's how we encourage people. Cooperation has to go both ways, in my understanding. And then the other one, the last point was, in the spiritual world, disagreements are there, right? You have Radharani's camp, you have Chandravali's camp. So there's always disagreement, but there's no conflict. So the fact that they want to serve Krishna differently, you know, when that happens, we say, no, well, this is what should be done. So that's not their mentality. Is they're serving Krishna very nicely. We're going to do better, but they're very happy that the other can. So that's what we have to become like. You know, not seeing somebody's doing something differently. Well, man, I hope, you know, he's going to fail, and I can't wait till it happens. So I can tell you that was useless. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Relevant class, of course, you know, the associated devotees is the greatest blessing. We've been wandering the universe for millions of births, you know, lost forever, and somehow by Krishna's infinite love and kindness, he brought us into the association of Prabhupada and then Prabhupada's followers, you know. I first met Prabhupada physically 8 months after I joined, but I actually felt that I met him when I met the first two devotees on the street there in Gastown, Vancouver. So Prabhupada's association is so powerful that it can be vicarious, that is, it can be through his followers. And you know, I think it goes on and on. Not just our generation, and many, many countless generations will give Prabhupada's association to countless millions, you know. My personal lacking is that I don't always keep my appreciation of the devotees, you know, strong. I take a lot of things for granted, and that's a thing I really regret, you know. Sometimes it's very positive, encouraging, and appreciative, but I don't keep it always on that level. I mean, every devotee is at a very great soul, and you know, he's given his best, you know, to try and surrender everything to Krishna. So I mean, we have to really, really appreciate devotees deeply and constantly, and then we can benefit. The point you made at the beginning of class, that then we can learn from each other and get enlivened. And that's Krishna's in the Gita. He says, Machchita Bhaktita Prana Bodhyantas Parasparam. That the business of devotees to get together and get enlivened, excited about Krishna together, deepen our faith and our taste.
Yeah.
So that's very nice. These type of events really give us a big boost in that direction. So I thank the organizers and the speakers and everyone here. So it's very nice.
Thank you. Lakshmanath Prabhu? So we got one more over there, and I think we're going to have to cut it because it's... yeah.
Thank you for the topic, but it's a big topic. Like Gaur said, we could spend months on this. One thing I see is often devotees disagree because purity is the force. If I see you've got a contamination or deviation, then I can't associate with you because you're going to contaminate me. So I shun you away because you're off, you're in Maya, you know, according to my judgment. So it requires devotees to become a lot more mature. And when someone has a different idea or view or whatever, it doesn't threaten my Krishna consciousness. I've got enough, I'm secure enough in my own Krishna consciousness, then I can hear you and I can, okay, that's how you see things, but it doesn't threaten me.
Right.
But often it threatens me because I'm not solid enough in my own conviction, and I fear you're influenced on me, therefore I just shun you. So, Chanakya Pandit also says that the greatest pain is to be insulted by someone you love. So everyone loves this movement, everyone loves Prabhupada, but sometimes if you get pain by devotees in the movement or the movement in itself, it becomes very painful and you may walk away. Not that you want to walk away from Krishna consciousness, but you just don't want to feel that pain again. You don't want to get hurt. So you got to put a shell, like you got to put a shell around yourself, a barrier to protect yourself, an armor. But then what happens is that devotees judge that person. They know this guy's in Maya. He left Krishna consciousness. He's out of it. So it's kind of insult to injury. Rather than being sensitive and saying, well, why did this person leave? And often we approach people in our society because we have a need. Like, okay, someone has to cook the offering, let's call this person. We don't give even the time for that person to explain the situation. We're not even concerned about his situation, what he's going through. We just want someone to fill the hole here. The boat is leaking and we got to plug the hole. And okay, Prabhu, and it's still, well, you're in Maya, I guess. Okay, you don't have the time. Okay, forget it. I'll call somebody else. And it's like, didn't even give me a time to explain myself, you know. I mean, I'm already condemned. Like, and then a couple of months later, you get another phone call, and it's like the same attitude, you know. And it's so there's a lot of passion in ISKCON, and I think we need to tone the passion down and bring it more to the mode of goodness. But I'm sympathetic. I was a manager. Often you're short of hands, you know, of manpower. Things are dropped at the last second. You're already extinguishing one fire, and there's another fire starting, and you lose the patience. And it's too passionate. But then you hurt. People get hurt, and then you lose their crew. Before you know it, you know, and you lose one person. It's not one big deal, and you lose that. But when you analyze it after 5 years, hey man, we've lost 20 people.
And then it makes it even harder to put out the fires.
Yeah, you know. So there has to be, and I think one of the biggest GBC roles, not that I want to, but I think is they should be like a coach. A coach is there to unite the team. If we don't have any coach to unite our teams, then if you don't have any generals coordinating the army, then it just gets all scattered. And it's a big task. It's not easy.
Yeah.
Because the hardest thing to give is to give yourself, because we have false ego. Sometimes even to give yourself to your child, or to your wife, or to your husband, it's very difficult, you know, to express yourself and to show that love. Words miss you, you know, and the children leave and they say, well, you never really express, I mean, yeah, you paid the bills and I had a meal but you weren't there for me. You know, what do you mean? I mean, I was working, but that's not what the child was expecting. He wanted a little attention, a little love, and that's difficult. And that was what Prabhupada could give us, because he didn't have that false ego. He could give himself to us, and that was the most precious thing.
So I'm just going to interject. So just 2 quick points. I totally agree with Prabhu's point about having a coach and keeping the teams together. I wanted to say the expression, water off the duck's back. So meaning that the water doesn't stay on the duck's back. So if somebody says something to you that might offend you, oftentimes in my experience being in ISKCON for some time is that people are having bad days and they might accidentally take it out on you and not to take it personally, and we're here for service and our devotional service. So then the second point is, yes, I've seen really good devotees leave ISKCON because something happened and they were in service, doing all kinds of things, and always attending, and all of a sudden they just fell off. And I do know someone that happened to, and so what I do is I just call them. I keep in touch with this person. Once in a blue moon, I feel like it's my effort to, I wish they would come back, but maybe they won't. But at least what I do is I just try to call them and say, hey, how's it going? Oh yeah, this is what's been going on at the temple, and that kind of thing. So those are my 2 points.
Yeah, keeping the lines of communication open. Yeah. Siddhanta, did you?
So I have
He's going to give this start.
one quickie. So this is a story that was told to me by a very good friend of mine, and he's a devotee associated with Prabhupada Ladi. He tries not to have his name mentioned, but so I won't say it, Peter Burgosh. But he was in Hawaii and he gave over $2,000 for a life membership. And he gave it to the temple president there. And the temple president was not doing so well in his own Krishna consciousness, although he did come back. But he took that money and bought an airplane ticket and blooped. Everyone knows what the word bloop means? There's another story how that term came to be. Brahmananda coined it. But anyway, regardless of that, so Peter Burwash was very upset. Obviously, it's like you give your money and you want a set of books and you want the ability to be able to go to various temples to stay at, and now it's gone into the ether, taken by a devotee, temple president. So he went to Srila Prabhupada, who was there in Hawaii at the time, and he complained to Prabhupada, this devotee took my money and now I can't.
I lost my life membership. It was over $2,000. This was like in the 70s. It was a lot of money. A lot of money now, but it's meant more then. So he was upset. And Srila Prabhupada said, do not be upset with the instrument of your karma. Do not be upset with the instrument of your
Tonight.
karma.
On that note,
Hare Krishna.
we'll end class. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Vaishnava Sanga.